It is now time for a motion to adjourn with MB Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson, JP.
And good afternoon, Brother Dawn.
Say good day, sir.
Good afternoon to the people of Bermuda.
Back once again.
And good afternoon to the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Hey.
Today we are blessed to have a extremely special guest, Honorable Fredrick A. Mitchell, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Welcome, Minister. Welcome to Power 95 and motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. You left off the junior, though. I'm only teasing you. when I hear people calling me Fredrick, I say they must be talking about my father.
Yeah.
No.
So, did you bring the rain?
They told me I brought the sunshine yesterday when I landed.
Oh, okay.
So they came in after me.
Well, I would say welcome to Bermuda, but you've probably been to Bermuda more times than many Bermudians.
It will go that far.
So for the few people that don't know you, tell us a very little bit about Fredrick A. Mitchell, Jr.
Well, you know, I'm the chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party.
Say that again. Some people don't quite understand that.
Yeah, I'm the chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. It's just PLP, the same letters of your party, the Progressive Labor Party. And so my ties here began with Lyndon Pindling and Dame Lois Brown Evans when I was a broadcaster back in the 1970s. And I learned that the two of them went to law school together, and he helped to craft the creation of the Progressive Labor Party. And during the time of the Tacklin and Burris executions and the Pitt Commission, I was a Broadcasting Corporation's director of news, and so Lyndon Pindling was supplying with information about what's going on here. So I spoke to Dame Lois Brown Evans almost every day during that period, those periods over the 2 years. So that was my introduction to Bermuda. And later, of course, I got to come here, having met Bermudians when I was in law school, and the friendships just concretized, and it was a good idea to come. So I came here for the first time in 98.
98?
Yeah, for the general election, yeah.
Yeah, so what was your recollection of that general election?
Well, we had just lost the PLP in the Bahamas. You know, we have the same slogan, PLP all the way.
Say that. You can say that again louder.
We have the same slogan, PLP all the way, in the Bahamas. But we had just lost the general election in 97 pretty badly. So when I heard that the election was taking place here in 98, and it looked as if there was going to be a change, because several times there had been attempts to change the regime and didn't occur. But it looked like this time was going to happen. Dame Jennifer had put together a team, and it looked like the time was right. So the then leader of our party, Perry Christie, asked me to come up and let him know what was going on with the elections. So we came, and it was just magnificent. It was like being back in Nassau that night. I was 13 when we accomplished majority rule in 1967. And I remember the joyous time it was for the black population of the Bahamas in that time. And so when we came here, it was like reliving it. The Gombe's came out. I'd never seen that before, heard that before. We have a version of Gombe in the Bahamas. But our national festival is Junkanoo. And everything that happens by way of celebration, there's always a Junkanoo band. So when we have this gala on Saturday night, I gather there's going to be a Junkanoo band as well for that. So I came in 98. And my memory is just a great time. My memory is trying to get into the Burroughs building, which is then called Alaska Hall, I think. And Dame Lois had told me earlier in the day, as soon as the results are out, come up to the headquarters and tell them I said to let you in. And so I get there, and the place, there's a phalanx of people all around. I mean, you could hardly press to get inside. And she's standing at the door, and she's saying to them, let him inside, let him inside. and everybody's, about their own business. So she grabs me by the collar and says, I said, let him inside.
But we in Bermuda we say, by the scruff of your neck.
That's right. And so she dragged me inside. So that's how I remember my introduction to Alaska Hall and that night. But it was really magnificent. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for that. What a lot of people don't know or don't fully understand is the connection between not just the PLP, not just Bahamas and Bermuda, but the two PLPs, Progressive Liberal Party in Bahamas, Progressive Labour Party in Bermuda. What is your understanding of that connection?
Well, as I said, the Dame Lois and Sir Lyndon were classmates at the University of London in the UK. And out of that friendship came this association, this political association. So he came back to the Bahamas in 1953 and immediately joined a party that had just been formed in 23rd of November 1953. So he comes back from London, joins the party, which is essentially a mulatto party in the Bahamas at the time. He's the only one who's phenotypically black in the group that you see in the original pictures. And they build up a force till he gets elected to the House in 1956 and becomes the leader of the Progressive Liberal Party. So by the time things move along, I think in 1960, and then the Labour Party in this country was formed.
63.
Yeah, and he, I can't say he actually helped to form it, but because of the friendship, clearly the ties developed, and they obviously remained quite close because, as I said, when it got to the 70s, when I came along, I mean, I literally talked to both of them almost every day about the political developments here. I mean, so I got to know her over the telephone before I'd actually met her, and I didn't.
Before she grabbed you by the scruff of your neck.
That's right, yeah, and that was not until the 90s. So I was at the time I was about 24, 23, something like that. And Dud Maynard, who was the chairman of our party,
Recently passed.
That's right. He came up. He was sent here to help in the training of how to poll the votes and how to canvass and how to train for elections. So when I landed here, a lot of people remembered him and remembered the ties between the two parties as a result of that.
Okay.
So it's been quite close. But, I was recalling to Senator Hodgson today when we went to visit Arthur Hodgson's resting place that the similarities, because I used to lecture at the University of the Bahamas, then the College of the Bahamas, and there was a book which described Bermuda and the Bahamas as the two North Atlantic territories of the British. And they always made this distinction between the Bahamas, Bermuda, and the rest of the Caribbean. Now, I think politically we consider ourselves now all Caribbean people, from Bermuda down to Suriname, including Trinidad, Barbados. But that's the way the British described it.
So to divide and conquer.
Right. So you had a PLP in Bahamas, PLP in Bermuda. You had a UBP in Bahamas, UBP in Bermuda. You had the Front Street Boys. We had the Bay Street Boys. Of course, we all say all the way PLP, and there's those similarities. The racial cleavages were more marked here than in the other Caribbean countries. Where the separation comes, of course, is the march to self-determination, which you have the highest level before independence, and we've now gone on to attain independence. But before that, the countries were tied. For example, if you go to Eleuthera today, there's a restaurant at Governor's Harbor called 1648. And 1648 is the time that the Puritans who left here, fleeing religious persecution, landed in Eleuthera. So the first landfall in the kind of modern era of settlement of Bermuda, of the Bahamas, came in 1648 on the island of Eleuthera. And I'll tell you this, I'm just being an amateur sociologist again now, but your accent is almost indistinguishable from the accent of Eleutherans today. So if you went there, the accent is, if you went to Topham Bay or Palmetto Point or Governor's Harbor, it's almost the same accent.
They say down the road too?
They say that as well. They do, as they do in the Turks and Caicos Islands, because the Turks and Caicos Islands are similar. Now, I mention that because At one point, Turks and Caicos Islands and the Bahamas were one country, and then they were
Well,
separated.
actually, you all took it from Bermuda, but
Right. I mean, so Bermudian businessmen owned the salt industry in the Turks and Caicos, and the Turks and Caicos representatives were complaining because they only had one representative. It took you 2 weeks to get from Turks to Nassau, so they could never make the House of Assembly meetings. And then it appears that the Bahamian legislature imposed a tax on salt. The Bermudian businessmen who owned the business said, we have enough of this, and they lobbied London to separate the two countries, and it was then transferred over to Jamaica. The administration was transferred over to Jamaica, and then returned under one governor in 1962 when Jamaica got its independence. And then, of course, they are now an entirely separate jurisdiction since 1973. So we're all, tied historically in so many ways. David Gibbons, he was premier here.
yes,
And he had a son who was also in politics here, that
was his nephew.
His nephew, yeah.
Grant.
So they are owners of Atlantic Medical, which is a big insurance company in the Bahamas. And then
Colonial.
right, and then you've got Bank
Or
of Butterfield.
CGI, they
Right.
call it CG Insurance.
Right, that may be the parent company.
Yeah,
And then you've got
Barrett's Gingerbread.
you've got Bank of Butterfield,
Yeah.
which is here. But why I mentioned him is because one day he invited me out to lunch up at the suite they have in the insurance company in Nassau, and he's telling me about the first time he came to Nassau as a student. I think he and Bobby Simnett must have gone to MIT or something together, and Bobby Simnett, who was a former Speaker of the House, invited him to come down to Nassau. And he said, after a day of being there, I thought, this is the wildest place I've ever been. He said, because this night, these people decided to race down Shirley Street. And he thought they were losing their minds. He said, I can't stay. I can't stay. This is not a place I need to stay. So I thought it was a funny story at the time. But, yeah, it's a long history of relationships between the countries.
Yeah, and that's the thing that unfortunately, a lot of people have this concept as if that the same folks that invest in Bermuda are investing in other Caribbean islands.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, some folks are telling us as black people that we should have nothing to do with the Caribbean islands.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, other folks are down there literally raking it in.
Yeah. I mean, they do well. But that's why our role now, Bermuda's an associate member of CARICOM, and we take the Bahamas take it very seriously. We know that it's important to have friends everywhere and allies, and whether you are dependent territory or independent territory, we have to have good relations, and so we're spending our time trying to cultivate those relationships and to ensure that the Bahamians here are good residents and good citizens of the country and contribute to the wealth creation
Or
here.
behaving themselves else, they might end up in Fox Hill. So let's. I mean, we know you're on a tight schedule, so I'm gonna just hit you for a few rapid questions. Beyond bringing the rain, why exactly are you here in Bermuda right now? Why are you all are here?
In pursuance of just what I said.
Okay.
In pursuance of just what I said, I've had a series of visits here since coming back to continue the project of bringing the countries closer together. One of the things we have to correct is getting from one to the next. So right now, in order to get here, you have to spend a night in another jurisdiction before you can come here. There's no way to get here within a day. And it used to be, when I was a student, one of the ways I could get here is because there was a British Airways flight that came London, Hamilton, Nassau, Kingston, and then on the way back, Kingston, Nassau, Hamilton, London, which made it, because it's only an hour, 50 minutes by line of sight from here to Nassau.
Hour and 15 minutes.
150.
Oh,
So it's about 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And of course, I was talking about the tie with Eleuthera. So you pass Eleuthera, you fly over. So by line of sight, the first thing you pass is Eleuthera. and then you're in Nassau. So that's an hour and 50 minutes down the road. So if we could improve that, and Patrick Manning, when he was the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, had a chat when they were making the public statements once. Hewitt Brown was then the Premier of Bermuda, and they both talked about, at one point, getting an airline service where you could start with Trinidad in the morning and be in Bermuda by nighttime. And that would link all the islands in between. So you just go Bermuda, Nassau, Kingston, Antigua, Barbados, Trinidad, and then you can find your way back. Because it's the ties, the people-to-people ties that are important that will make this thing work. So that's the overall point. The second point is we are celebrating 50 years as an independent country.
Who's the we?
Bahamas. The Bahamas.
The Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Bahamas, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a Bahamian community here, and they asked me to come. And the government of Bermuda has kindly agreed to host a reception to mark the occasion. That's tomorrow. So I want to thank the Premier for that. And, of course, yourself and Deputy Premier Walter Raban have all been instrumental in fixing and concretizing these ties. We're deeply grateful for it. And then the Bahamians themselves on Saturday will be hosting a gala to mark the event, at which I'm to be the primary speaker. The Prime Minister came here earlier this year. So we're just making it a point.
You're just
making a point.
Doing what's got to be done.
Yeah, because it's the people ties that matter.
Yeah, because the thing with just like in let's put in a political context. You have two political parties. One never comes to somebody's house, but expects them to vote for them. The other one comes to the house, goes to the children's graduation, goes to the granny's funeral, goes to all the social events. So when polling day comes, who's the person most likely going to vote for? The person that they have built relationships with, right?
Yeah.
So back to your point about the Honorable Doug Maynard, he came here and helped to I guess you say, teach the PLP, the Bermuda PLP, the importance of canvassing.
Canvassing, yeah.
That is the hallmark of who we are as a party, is that we canvass. We may not get everything right legislatively, but we are connected with our people. So likewise, on a macro, that because Bermuda is so far north, Bermudians have been indoctrinated to say, "Oh, you're not part of the Caribbean. You're not part of those people." And there are two people in the Caribbean who haven't had a chance to travel as much, don't see Bermuda as part of the Caribbean. So back to the parallel of you all visiting us visiting you. That's what helps to bind that relationship, so that when you say, "Hey, who's Bermuda's best friend in the Caribbean?" the immediate answer is the Bahamas.
Yeah, no question. I hope that's the case.
Not to say it's an election, but the point is that you all have time and time again made the effort to come up here, even if you have to overnight. My apologies. Even if you have to overnight, you made the effort to come to Bermuda. Then you have Bermudians traveling to the Bahamas, delegations. We're taken care of just like we're Bahamians. Hey, welcome here, brother. Let's get some boiled fish or whatever it is we like, right? And these are things that for centuries we have been denied. So I want to thank you as I guess you say somebody who believes in Pan-Caribbeanism. I want to thank you personally for the efforts that you make, not just for Bermuda, but you go around the Caribbean to ensure that the islands stay bonded together.
Yeah.
You and others, especially Prime Minister Davis, have made the effort to ensure that the quote-unquote smaller islands are treated equally as the bigger islands. So I personally want to thank you for that on behalf of the people of Bermuda and other overseas territories.
It is very important. And, the major issue for our region, because this is, if you decide at some point to become an independent state, this is going to, it'll be in the United Nations, you'll become part of Latin America and the Caribbean. That'll be the region you're in. So right now, Haiti is the big issue. And I always remember P.J. Patterson saying, because it's a bit unusual for us to be.
We'll go to news and then come back.
Yeah, sure.
Fred from ZipX. At ZipX is not about the packages, it's about the people. We work hard behind the scenes to get your order from our Delaware facility and deliver it into your hands in Bermuda in the fastest way possible at the lowest rates. The best part of my day is seeing my clients' smiling faces when I pull up to their driveway with their ZipX packages. Look out for me in my red, white, and blue van. And don't forget, zip it with ZipX. Sign up for your free ZipX account at zipx.bm and shop tax-free with a U.S. shipping address.
It's Thursday, the 29th of June. I'm Gary Foster-Skelton. Here are your headlines. Parents groups question the transparency around school reform. Town hall meeting addresses the potential and problems of offshore wind energy. And a further series of public meetings will address preparation for extreme weather. This is Bermuda Broadcasting.
94.9 Bermuda. Hour 95.
Yes, so Minister, you were saying about Haiti?
Yes, I was trying to get to this point. Haiti is the only French-speaking independent country in the region. And it may look a bit unusual for Haiti to be part of an English-speaking group because we're largely former British colonies, except for Suriname. But P.J. Patterson, when he was Prime Minister of Jamaica and chair of CARICOM, said that he wanted to make a special outreach to Haiti, obviously because it's the first independent black country in the world and in this region. But it was essentially by itself. The Dominican Republic is tied with Cuba and the Iberia group and the Latin group because they all speak Spanish together. But Haiti was there by itself. So he felt it was a natural thing for them to be a part of us. And that's what I say about the dependent territories. You had a guest, Dr. Sooner, I believe it was, on your radio station, and something struck me when she said that the whole project of independence and self-determination is not done until everybody is free. And that, of course, is something which you have to decide. No one pushes you beyond your own abilities or wants or desires. But democracy has to flourish. And the great thing to remember, we're just telling this to the British, Ralph Gonsalves, who is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, is these societies that we now occupy and govern were not built by anyone else but ourselves. And we ought to have this self-confidence that we can manage it ourselves. And that's all. That's the total story.
Yeah, because the thing that we keep, but the dependent countries, it's only say dependent, the overseas territories, the British colonies are being told constantly, well, if you go independent, you're going to end up like this, you're going to end up like that. But they never point to the independent countries that have been successful, right? No one ever told America, well, if you go independent from England, you're going to end up like. They just did it, right? And this is where it goes back to colonialism, where there's the black or people of color, let's put it that way, are constantly being made to feel inferior or attempted to make to feel inferior, that if you don't get white validation from a colonial master, it's not okay. We have no confidence in ourselves type of thing, right? And then I'll touch on this very briefly. If you look at who our colonial master is Britain, and look at what they're going through right now. They had 3 prime ministers in the last year. They can't control their inflation. The mortgage rates are going sky high. So the question is, who has the more stable economies? It's us. Who has the more stable political environments? It's us. If any one country had changed prime ministers 3 times within a year, twice because of resignations, they'll say that's almost like a banana republic, for lack of a better term.
Well, this is what we pointed out with the Turks and Caicos Islands when they imposed direct rule on Turks and Caicos. they were going through at the same time that they suspended the democracy in Turks and Caicos. They were going through a scandal with the allowances for members of parliament.
They were double dipping.
And we said to them, but look, you haven't suspended democracy in the UK as a result of that. You let the proper thing I thought they told us in the parliamentary system was you go to elections. If there's a crisis in the country over governance, you dissolve parliament and you hold fresh elections and give somebody a new mandate. But there it is.
Yeah. So coincidentally, you old Commonwealth of the Bahamas are celebrating 50 years of independence, but also another organization is celebrating 50 years. You want to elaborate that as we wind up?
Yes. At the same time, CARICOM is celebrating 50 years as a body. The 4th of July, 1973, at Chaguaramas in Trinidad, the four original countries, which was Guyana, Barbados, Trinidad, and Jamaica, signed a concordat which agreed to establish the CARIFTA, Caribbean Free Trade Area, and then subsequently, 10 years later, they signed something to create the single market and economy. So that's the 50 years being celebrated in Trinidad at Chaguaramas. The new chair, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, hands off to Dominica, who's Roosevelt Skerritt, on the 1st of July. But because the treaty was signed in Chaguaramas, Trinidad has agreed to host the meeting so we can all gather at Chaguaramas again. And, this has gone through all sorts of stages because the British tried to create the West Indies Federation, and that collapsed because of internal arguments between Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados. So everybody went independent in 1962. But then the leaders in the 1970s decided this doesn't make sense. We really have to try and get together. And so they signed the Treaty of Chaguaramas, and we've been on that project now since the 1970s. And there was a time when meetings weren't held because the leaders didn't get along. They didn't speak to one another. But, we're back at it again.
We've matured.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the actually, people will talk about the European Union or some other organization, but CARICOM is older than the European Union.
It is.
CARICOM has, 20 members, which is 15 full members and 5 associate members, right?
Yeah.
And there's no perfect organization, but this is what we have.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the people of the Caribbean, whether you're in the South Caribbean, you're in the West Caribbean, East Caribbean, or in Bermuda and Bahamas and Turks and Caicos in the North Atlantic part of the Caribbean, the cultures are 80% same. Our dialects may change, what we call different food may change. But apart from that, we're the same people.
Well, I'd like you, I said to the Deputy Premier, I'd like you to offer to host a CARICOM Heads of Government meeting as soon as you're able. I think you need to do that. And everybody will come up here.
Yeah,
I think
we've got to work on a nice big hotel like Bahamas.
Yeah. Great.
So, and thank you for honoring us as our guests. On motion to adjourn. Any special words you want to say to the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas?
Well, certainly. Well, we're coming up on our birthday, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time. But remember, it's a time of reflection and, plotting the way forward. And I look forward to, closer ties with Bermuda. And I want to thank the people of Bermuda, the government of Bermuda, for extending this warm welcome to us and to our colleagues and friends and allies in the Progressive Labour Party, to thank them for all that they do in ensuring that democracy survives.
Any shout out to the people of Fox Hill? Because there's a few of my friends from Fox Hill listening here right now.
Are you running for there? Because, I got to be suspicious.
No. Not in the least. Not in the least.
No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, thank you to them too, because of course none of this would be possible without the people of Fox Hill.
Yeah, there's a
one of them is, Georgette is traveling with me. She's one of my constituents.
She's from Fox Hill?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then
A call from Fox Hill.
A call from Fox Hill?
Is that right?
Good afternoon. Welcome to Motion
Good
to...
afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Bermuda 95.
Hi.
I'm listening to my good minister. It's very informative. I've learned a lot also. This is Mrs. Gardner.
It's Georgette's mom.
Oh, oh, yeah, your daughter's in good hands. We're taking good care of her.
Yes, that's my second home.
Oh, you've been to Bermuda before?
No, but I have friends from Bermuda, one or two of them. Okay. One of them has passed on, but
okay,
it's like home.
All right. Well, thank you for calling, and the minister was just giving a shout out to the folks of Fox Hill, and I was going to tell him to make sure to give a shout out to my good friend Sam Rill and Tony Brown. I don't know if you know this.
I
Tony.
know that the jerk guy.
Yes,
yeah, you know, got that big mango tree.
Yeah.
I tell you that. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, all right,
Take
Ms.
care.
Gardner. Tell the folks in St. Anne they say hello as well.
Bye-bye. That's nice.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing is that once I've been to Bahamas twice. Once was last August for climate change, and then this February. And this February, the meeting was CARICOM, and my friends there were like, "We ain't seen you, Chris. We ain't seen you." I was like, "Well, we have meetings. I have to be there." They was like, "Okay, see us after meeting." So I'll tell you a real quick story. So I changed my ticket to stay an extra couple of days, and I told the gentleman, I said, "Look, I changed my ticket for a couple of days. Just let me know which hotel to stay at, because the hotel where I'm staying now, the government's not going to pay for anymore, right?" So he says, "Hotel? What hotel?" "No, man, you're staying with us." And from that day to the day I left, I was taken care of 2,000%.
So, all right.
I went Foxy, I went to St. Anne's, the Jackpot. So I just want to say, like I said, Bermudians and Bahamians, we have that special bond.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a great
Minister,
story. Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Cameraman,
Yeah,
thank you,
we'll
Ms.
see.
Gardner. Thank you for calling in. Everybody, Foxy, tell Tony Brown I say hello.
Okay. I'll make
So-
sure to. Tony.
We'll go to break, and then we'll be right back.
All right. Thank you.